This is Dennis Pullis. Welcome to another Open Philosophy video. Today we're going to be continuing our discussion of abstraction. We're going to see how the ideas we learned apply to basic metaphysical concepts, namely existence, essence, and causality. Last time I used our experience of crows as an example of different ways in which we could arrive at universal propositions. On the one hand, we can think about crows that are not there and generalize by hypothesizing that all crows are black. On the other hand, we can concentrate on the crows that are there and abstract various notes of comprehension from our experience. We can treat the crows as countable and arrive at the conclusion that 2 plus 2 equals 4. Since 2 plus 2 equals 4 depends only on the property of countability, it will necessarily apply to everything that is countable. So there are two different ways in which we can generalize. One is described by the Hume-Mill model of induction. It's exemplified by the idea that all crows are black. The other is the Thomistic model of abstraction, and it is exemplified by the proposition that 2 plus 2 equals 4 always and everywhere. The Hume-Mill model is based on inadequate data. It's justified by psychological association. It adds a hypothesis, and as a result it is uncertain and can be falsified. Thomistic abstraction, on the other hand, is very different. It is based on adequate data, it is logically justified, and instead of adding a hypothesis, it removes distractions. It abstracts them away. As a result, it is certain, and it cannot be falsified. Of course, the notion of abstraction is not the only suggestion about how we form our abstract ideas and necessary judgments. Some believe that they're a priori, that they're independent of our experience, that somehow either God gives them to us or we're born with them. Others, such as Roger Penrose, believe in Platonism. They believe that somewhere the ideas, the relationships which form mathematics in particular, exist in an abstract world, and that through processes unknown, they inform our minds. Yet, by examining how we apply our ideas, we see that neither is necessary. In order for us to apply ideas to concrete objects, in order for us to know that this crow is in fact a crow, and that this object is in fact a unit, the objects have to be able to elicit the ideas in us. A crow has to be able to elicit the idea of a crow. It has to be able to elicit the idea of a unit when we're counting it. And if the ideas can be elicited in their application, then there's no reason why they can't be elicited in their origin. Now let's consider some metaphysical ideas and see that they're just as empirically based as arithmetic ideas. Just as we can look at crows and see that each is an instance of a countable unit, so we can look at crows and see that each is an instance of being. Abstracting down to the level of being justifies our metaphysical ideas. Still, the idea of being is so abstract that it can be very confusing. Plato gave us a wonderful idea of how to think about being in his dialogue The Sophist. There he wrote, "I suggest that anything has real being that is so constituted as to possess any sort of power either to affect anything else or to be affected, in however small degree, by the most insignificant agent, though it be only once. I am proposing, as a mark to distinguish real things, that they are nothing but power." This leads us to formulate a dynamic ontology, one in which existence is the ability to act in the world. Anything that can act certainly must exist. What cannot act can never be known, and would never therefore be thought of as an instance of existence. So to exist is to be able to act. In the same way, we can explain the idea of essence of what a thing is by looking at the specification of its possible acts. If something can reflect red light, it's red. If something can act like an apple, then it's an apple. This gives us a very clear way of thinking about essence and existence in terms of acts and the specification of acts. It need not be any more complicated than that. There's no need to construct vast speculative systems. All we need to do is think about the implications of action and possible actions. When we know things, it's because they've acted on us and we become aware of their action. They affect our senses and we become aware of that. Every experience gives us a projection of essence because, however a thing acts on us, that is one of the possible ways in which it can act. Every experience illuminates for us a possible mode of action of the object that we're interacting with. So, experience tells us about essence, but it doesn't do so in an exhaustive way. It tells us about this possible act or that possible act, and leaves others mysterious to be future surprises. In the same way, experience also tells us about existence. Since existence is the ability to act, anything which acts on us to inform us necessarily exists. Thus, all that we need to know about essence and existence is given in experience. There is no need for speculation. Unlike Kant's confused worldview, there is no separation between phenomenal experience and noumenal essence and existence. Essence and existence act on us to inform us, and our experience reveals them. In my video 15, where I proved the existence of God, I assumed that concurrent causality was necessary, and it is necessary if science is to work. However, I didn't prove that concurrent causality is necessary. Here we will see why it is. In video 13, I discussed two kinds of causality in relationship to the laws of nature. One kind of causality, the one that philosophers normally talk about today, is accidental causality. It is the idea that time sequences follow rules, that the same causes in the past produce the same effects today. The other kind of causality is essential causality. It is concurrent. For something to happen here and now, the cause must operate here and now. And that's how the laws of nature work. If energy is to be conserved here and now, then the law of conservation of energy must be operative here and now, not in the past. Hume criticized causality, but the kind of causality he criticized was accidental or time-sequenced causality. Clearly, time-sequenced causality is not necessary. If there is a cause at one time, and then later an effect is expected, it is possible for something to intervene, for some outside factor to prevent the operation from reaching completion in the expected effect. On the other hand, in concurrent causality, there is no difference in time, and so there is no place for some interference to insert itself. Another difference between the two kinds of causality is just what we've been discussing, how it is that we reach our generalizations. Hume showed that our idea of time-sequenced causality is the result of repeated association. Since A followed B any number of times, when A happens, we expect that B will happen shortly. That kind of generalization follows on the Hume-Mill model that we've discussed, but it is not logically justified. Concurrent causality, on the other hand, can be justified by abstraction and deduction. Before something comes to be, it is potential, but it is not operational. It will be able to operate at some time in the future, but because it doesn't exist now, it can't operate now. Since changing from being non-operational to operational is an activity, and since it is not operational, it can't perform the activity, We need something else which is already operational to effect the transformation, and it has to operate when the change is taking place. It does no good for it to operate in the past, for then we have no guarantee that the effect will actually transpire. So concurrent causality follows necessarily from understanding that to exist is to be operational, and that to be potential is to be non-operational.